So this is a Discord.js tutorial. Um, this is more of an advanced way of doing it. Most people do a lot of their code in one file, which uh, if you look more into how a program functions, is that the more the more stuff you have in the main file, the slower it can respond to something by like a few milliseconds. So having like a big file is generally bad. It's also unorganized because you have to go through the entire file just to find out one thing. So before I do the tutorial, I have to explain a few things that I feel like I need to explain and address, like the differences and how to use it, which is right here in this file. The first thing is declaration. So the first one right here is basically it's calling on the entire package or file. And then the one under it right here is grabbing what is needed. So um, so a lot of times you'll see when I'm coding is I use this one, the grabbing what I need, over the entire thing because I don't need everything. And the more stuff I need to grab, the slightly slower it can be. It's also just, I don't need an entire thing. I just need one thing from it. And so instead of having to call on the class name and then to the where the class inherits the other class, I can just call on the class I made instead of going through this whole entire calling methods and all this stuff. The next thing is properties, so you'll see this a little bit. So I just do like a little thing right here. So you have two ways of expressing a object, which is a key value. The first one is the standard one where you do the object's name and then you do the properties of it. The other way is doing what I usually do with I do a string array, then dot for each, and then use an arrow function, and you can put in an object through the square brackets, and it'll act like as if the property was key. So it's a nice thing to use for condensing code. If you have a lot of things that are exactly the same thing, you can shrink it down to one specific line or just make it more clean. And then you have functions and arrow functions. They do the exact same thing, but generally you call functions like this if it's an actual like function outside if it's like outside of another function. So instead of having it be a function inside a function, it's just outside. That's generally how you would do it. Arrow functions are usually functions that are inside a function. It just makes it look cleaner and better to use, but they do the exact same thing, so you will see multiple ways of doing it. And then we have parameters, so there's two names for it, which is formal parameters and then actual parameters. Formal is when you call what you're expecting from as a parameter. The actual one is what you're passing in, basically. You have model that exports, which is everything in JavaScript is a model module, and then so you export it a lot. And you will see this usually. You can export classes like this. You can do that with a function. So you have different ways of doing it. And then down here we have events. Events is just structured like this. I'll explain a little bit more later on about it, but this is what a event looks like. And then we do export, so we can do so export is just this way. You can export a variable, a class object, and you didn't do it inside a module with export. You can use export and brackets and you can put whatever object you need or anything you need to put in there that you forgot. Usually you do this with classes, but you can also do it this way. And then we have logging versus throwing. Console.log and console.error is basically logging. Difference between that and throwing is throwing would actually throw an error and it will cause the program to stop. Logging does not. Console.error does stop the program, but it can continue afterwards. So if you want the program to stop immediately, you want to throw it. And we also have throwing and returning. They do exactly the same thing, except returning will return something back to wherever it's being called from. So you call on if I'm returning something, which would say something is a string, and I call on returning, which is a function, it will whatever something is. So if I do let something equals return, then whatever something is becomes whatever something is will basically be what this is going to take. So that's basically what starting is. So I don't need to explain on how to install Node.js and all that stuff because there's so many tutorials about it. But if you need to, you can go to just like search up Node.js in Google or wherever, and you just download it from there. You just follow the wizard instructions and all that. But when you have that, you should have npm. You should check. So you need to check if you have Node. The current version is 14, but I'm using 12, which is fine. Discord.js version 12 you need to have Node 12 or above, so I'm fine with that. And then you need npm. So you just need these two basically. So when you're starting, you need to make sure you do npm init. So npm init will make a package.json file, so we can do, say, enter version yes. We can make a description, so let's say like Discord dot entry is fine. We will change entry, the repo, keywords, author. So we have that, and you'll see we have package.json, which I want to change this real quick. And it's going to be index.js. Okay. So we're also going to deal with .env, which is actually pretty simple. I already made a .env with my credentials, which I don't want to show. So it's in this credential file folder right here, but this is an example with .env, or basically is an environment variable. You want to make sure that your variable name is all caps, and you have no spaces. You don't have to have your variable names to be all caps, you can have a lowercase, but the general rule was to make sure it's all caps because it's just how it's always been. And you just put in whatever your thing is you want without like braces. So like prefix, we can say I'm going to use the prefix of plus, so I can do that without quotations or anything because it's basically a string. So you just put your token in here and your prefix in here, and then if you're going to push this to get, you can do .get ignore and then just put .env in there. You can do that. There's some people that do their credentials in .json files, which is fine. Either one is fine, but we're going to deal with .env. I don't need the start.js anymore. So a few things we need to have is going to be npm, which is going to be installed. We need discord.js. We also need .env. Is that it? Yeah, that's about it. It's going to install them. Okay, let me just, yeah, I think that's it now. Okay, so we have, so this package dash lock.json is just there. You don't want to delete it. You want to keep that in this new folder. Node modules is where all of your packages will be. Do I have everything in here? I don't. If you don't have everything in there, you can just do npm I do have everything. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is not in there. What I usually do is make a new folder called src, which is source code, and then you can do we're going to do index.js file. We're going to go into this package.json file, source, index.js. So whenever we do node dot, it will run the main, which will be source index.js, which will be our main folder, main file. So we can go in here. So we're going to do const client and collection, and we're requiring this from discord.js. Okay, so yeah, so I only need these two. There's no reason to call on the entire package just to get these two. But yeah, so we need to call on the client, which will be, we're going to call it client, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make a string array for each, and this is where these things are helpful. There's a new collection, and we can pass in commands. So instead of having to do client dot commands equals new collection, and then we have to do like client dot cooldowns, new collection, and all this stuff, we can just do this all in one line, and we just put in whatever we need. So if we need like cooldowns, we will put in cooldowns, which is nice. And we're going to do this again with another thing. So we're going to do another string array. We're going to do command and event. We're going to make a command handler and an event handler. We're going to require handler x, and we're going to pass in client. And then we're going to do client.log const const dot env equals require env dot config. Okay, and that's basically all we need to do. I'm going to do this thing real quick. I just realized that I have to have it in the same. Just realized I have to have the .env folder has to be in the root directory for .env to work. I could just do like config and put the file path, but it's just easier to do it in the root. So we have that, and then we're going to do a new folder called handler. I just spelled that wrong. New folder. I'm going to fix that command. No. Okay. New folder. Handler. And new file. Command. new folder, new file name event.js. So we're going to do command.js file first. Making these are actually pretty easy. Let me do something real quick. Oof. We need I know for a fact we need to have the FS file with, package, which is a file system. This will allow us to interact with files and such, and to look if a directory exists, a file exists, and such. So that's kind of what we were doing here. And then we're going to do a model dot exports, and we're doing arrow function client, and we're going to do another arrow function of load. It's going to pass in dirs const command, and then we're going to require the read dir sync, which is read directory sync. So file system usually, if it doesn't have sync, it means it's asynchronously and you have to have it called back. Which is you just make a function inside it, and then you just tell it what to do afterwards. But anyways, read dir sync, and we're going to do src commands, and then we're going to do dirs, then dot filter, d, which is going to be the value, basically. Callback right here is a callback. We want to do d.end with, and we're looking for files that have the .js extension to it. And then, so then we can do let file and command, and I want to change this to commands because that's what this is doing. Commands. Actually, it's not in because we are not looking in, we are looking of. And then we do let cmd equals require. Double dots is basically back out of the directory. We're going to make a folder called commands, and we're going to put dirs, and we're going to call on the file name. And then client dot commands dot set cmd dot name cmd. So this is basically saying, so a collection is a map. Map is basically an array that takes a key and value, which is like a JSON. Basically we're saying that the key is going to be called cmd dot name, which is the command name, and then cmd as the value, which is the actual command. We need to do it this way because we are having lots of things on the command, like properties such as the invoke, which will execute the command when the command name is called on, and like aliases, if it has args, cooldowns, such. So we're going to need to have it as like this. And I'm also going to add a console.log command, and we're just going to put in command name. Let's load it. Also forgot to explain backticks. So backticks are these right here. So backticks are nice to have because it allows us to insert an object such as like this inside a string instead of having to do this all plus and quotations, all that stuff. We can do it all in one string. And then we just need to do this dot for each x is going to be in load x. So basically how this works is that we put in, let's say we're going to make a directory or folder called miscellaneous. Basically what we do is we put miscellaneous, the name string, in here, and basically it looks through, it says okay, miscellaneous, is going to be X, which will be passing into load, which will be called doors, and it's going to look inside dots, src commands, miscellaneous, and looks for files that have the extension of .js. And then for each file that's in the commands or of commands, it will require it, and then we can set the command name and the command into the client.commands. This is how I do my command handlers. There's other ways of doing it. People do it inside the index file, but I just find it easier to do it this way. I've always been doing it this way for a long time. So then we can also just copy and paste this over. It's basically the exact same thing, it's just slightly different. We're going to call this events, and instead of it going to be going to this directory, we're going to do it in the events directory. Same thing. We're going to change this to be events. Okay, so we're also going to call this EVT, short for events, and this is what's going to change. Also going to change this to be event, and then we're going to just do that. Okay, so in order for us to do the event, we have to actually do .on, and so there's a problem with us putting in the events here. The problem is that when we call on the file for requiring it, it's actually going to be event dot. It's going to, so say we were doing the ready event. So event would actually equal to ready.js. And in the client, as the event, there is no ready.js. It's called ready. So we actually have to do a little thing called, we have to do this. We have to do file.split dot 0. Basically what this is saying is that it's going to take the file string, and then it's going to split it at the dot, and then since we want 0, which is the first index of it, we are grabbing the actual file name, not the extension with it. If we did 1, we will get the file extension. And so now we have the event name. You can do name, and we have to do event dot bind null and client, and then we can just go here and we do like ename, and then I already know what, and we're gonna have a client folder, a guild folder. So we're gonna make those right now. Events first, so we can't do anything without them. And then we want a folder called client, and a folder called message. I meant guild. I don't know why I put that in there. Okay, and then so in the client, we want to put in a ready.js file. So in here, we're just going to do a simple thing, exports, and we want to pass in the client as a formal parameter, and then we just do console.log client.user.username is logged in, or is ready. So the ready event executes when the bot is ready. When the bot is connected and everything is all set for it, that's when this executes. It only executes once, which is when it starts. Then we want to go into the guild folder, and we're going to make a message.js file. So in here it's going to be a little bit bigger. So the first thing we want to do is module.exports. We're going to pass in client and message. So how events works is that it creates its own parameter that it passes in for you. So the parameter for message is message, Ready does not have one, so we just need to pass it to client. Client has to be passed because we are already passing it in through everything else. So like in events, you can see we have client here. This is what it's passing in and such. So the message we're going to have a parameter called message. So now we have to do a check for bots. We don't want our bot to respond to other bots. We have to do if message.author.bot, which is saying if the author of the message is a bot, then we want to return it. Returning nothing is just nothing. It's not going to do anything. So then we also want to not chat or to take messages from DMs. So we're going to do message.channel.type is equal to DM. And we're also going to say return, which we can actually take this, copy that, put that there, and we just have one line that has 2 checks in it. Next check we need is for the actual prefix. So content.starts with and we also need we can just use process.env.prefix. Did I do the process? No, I didn't. Okay. Process.env.token. As you can see, I also capitalize everything at the end because that's what we want, and we want it is case sensitive. So we're saying if message.content starts with prefix dot basically the prefix. So in my case, it's going to be a plus sign. Then we want to execute, and then we're going to have a variable called args, which is arguments, which will be message.content. I have to check this because I did have this made. What was that? Oh yeah, okay. Slice. We're slicing the prefix, so process dot env.prefix dot length. So basically, however long the prefix is, it's going to slice it, so we don't have the prefix in the arguments, and then we're going to split, and we do this regex, which is saying search for spaces. If we just did this, not that, but if we did this, it only search once for some reason, which I don't understand, but that's just how it is. If you don't understand how regex works, you can look it up, but basically regex is a type. It's like a search string basically, so in this case we are searching for anything that has a space in it. The G is global, so it's going to look through the entire thing. You can look up, like, there's cheat sheets for regex. You can there's a regex tester that you can use to test them out, but that's basically what it is. And we're going to make a const main, which will equal args.shift.to lowercase. Basically this is saying, so when we split something, it actually makes the variable become an array, and so with the .shift method, basically what it does is it takes the first item in the array and it removes it, but since we are doing that inside a declaration for a variable, we actually pass in the shifted item So instead of having the entire array, we actually just get the command name. So, and then we're going to do let command equals client dot commands dot get command name. Or, since we're also going to do aliases, we can do client dot commands dot find cmd, which is command cmd dot aliases, which in this context is basically saying if cmd, so command dot aliases, does exist or has something inside it which is not null, basically, then it's true. And it, with the double ands, we're saying and cmd dot aliases dot includes command name. And so basically what this does, I can put this here, but it doesn't matter. Let command is equal to client.commands.get command name. So it's going to search for the command dot names from the command.js file we made. It's going to search through and see if there is any. If it's not true, then it will go to the next thing, which would be searching for aliases. So it's going to say or client.commands.find, and we're saying cmd.aliases if there is aliases for the command, and it does have the command name inside the array, then we're passing that command back. The find will go through the entire map of whatever it is. And then so we're going to say if no command, so the exclamation mark is no. So if there's no command, so basically saying if it's false, then we're just returning. We don't want to do anything. So now we're going to do a try catch. In here we don't want to throw. We actually want to send a message. .channel.send. This is Discord.js's version of how to send things. We're basically saying from the message variable, search for the channel that the message originated from. Then send whatever we want to send to it. So we're going to say here, something went wrong, and then we're going to say error, and we're going to do error. We can throw or we can log. For the purposes of testing, we're going to throw. If we weren't testing, we would just to actually log it because we want it to continue working. But for testing, we're just going to throw it, and then we're going to go back up here and we're going to say command dot execute. And we're going to pass in client, message, and args as actual parameters. Okay, so this is all done basically. We need to actually add command folder. I think it's supposed to be commands. We need to add a new folder called miscellaneous, and a new file called ping.js. So in here, it's actually going to be pretty simple. All the exports, and so in this case, we're actually making an object, which is a module. So in here, we're going to have the name, which is the command name, so cmd.name. It's going to be called ping. We also are going to have an aliases. Ping is also known as latency. So latency and ping are exactly the same thing. People in Discord prefer ping over latency because it's shorter, but the actual term is latency. Because we're seeing how late the message is being sent, but ping also works because it also works as a term for it. We're also going to add a description for it. We're going to say displays the bot's current latency. Okay. We also going to have a category and it's going to just be miscellaneous. I do this for some reason. I don't know why. I know I could do it differently, but I just choose to do it this way. And we also have execute and client, message, and args as formal parameters. And then we're just going to do a simple one, which is message.channel.send. And we're going to say pong bots current latency is client.ws, which is websocket.ping milliseconds. Ping and latency is measured in milliseconds. Okay, and that's basically it for this. Now we can actually, I think we can test it. I need to make sure that I have everything right. Commands, yeah. Okay. Events also. Okay. I will not be surprised if I do get in there. If you're wondering how I'm getting up the console like that, I'm just doing Control-Shift-C and Visual Studio Code. It opens a new terminal. And I can just do no dot. Yep. It's a dot. I did spell something wrong, which is right here. Node dot. So you can see we actually have command, ping was loaded, event ready was loaded, message was loaded, and then so this is from the ready event. So now we can actually get to Discord, which if I can. You can see this is my bar right here. I'm using which is Panda 2.0. So go in here, do a little testing, but basically if I do ping, pong, if I do latency, pong. So that's a way of doing it, and this is the way I was been doing it. Right now there's not much, which is why I'm going to also do a help command, which is right here. This is an embed, and basically it will look something like this. And so with we're actually to exit out. So with the help command, I'm going to be showing how to make is actually a dynamic one. So the difference between a dynamic and a static one is that static is where it's going to be the same thing no matter what. It's not going to change. So you have to write every single thing in the command for it. So that's what static is. Dynamic is different. Dynamic is going to change without us having to change it. It's going to just be able to move and change and everything. So that's what we are going to do. Okay. Let me check here. Okay. So first thing we're going to require is the message.embed. And we're going to require it from discord.js. If you're in version 11, it's actually rich embed. It's a message embed because they changed the name declaration for a lot of things, and they condense a lot of stuff. So you have to check what version you are. If you're version 11, you use rich embed. If you're using version 12, it's message embed. We also want to put in the prefix because I don't want to keep writing it all the time. It's going to be process.env.prefix. And I also need to explain, since in the index, since we have the .env in here, we don't have to call on it anywhere else. So now we also need to have the ready-dir sync. Require fs, which this is the way I've been doing it. I might not do it this way because I already know how to do this, but I'm just going to do it because it's simpler. I don't know why I'm doing that. Name is going to be called help. And then we have aliases, which is going to be command and commands. Category is miscellaneous. Description is also going to be list. This is all of the bots, commands, or info about a specific. Oops, should not be doing that in that. Should do that in this one. List all of the bots, commands or info about a specific command. Okay, we also want to add a usage in here, which is going to be command name. We're going to distinguish between what is required and what is not, which is like optional. We're going to pass in the client message and args. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is call on an embed. Embed equals a new message embed. Okay, we actually can do it like this, dot set color, and we're going to do this, which is going to choose a random color from Discord's like collection of colors, and we're going to do a dot set author. We're going to do message guild dot me dot display name. This is basically saying so the message came from the guild. Dot me is the bot. Dot display name is basically whatever name it's being displayed, which is its nickname or username, depending on what the guild has its name as. It can change differently, and it's nice to have it be that, because if you have your actual name, the username for it, instead of like they had a nickname for it, it can be a little bit confusing. And we're also going to do, we need to put in, we're going to say help. We're also going to do a message.guild.icon URL, which is basically grabbing the server's like server icon, and we're going to just display it. Also need to explain the guild is basically server. It's just called guild. It's been like that for a while. We're also going to add a footer. Yeah, we can add a footer here. I can spell right. And the footer is going to just be message dot guild. Capitalize message dot guild dot me dot display name total commands. Capitalize that, commands, which is client dot commands dot size. Size is like how many are in the map, so like how many commands do we have basically. So it should display 2. And we also need one more thing, which is going to be the thumbnail. Thumbnail is just going to be client.user.display avatar URL. In Discord version 12, this was actually property, not a function, but just keep that in mind. If you're in version 12, make sure you take out the parentheses next to it. Now we're going to do if there's no arguments. So args 0. So this basically saying if after the command name, whoever's that is, that's going to be arg 0. 0 in arrays is the first item. It's a so in programming, the numbers don't go to 10. It actually goes to up to 9. 9 is 10 basically, and 0 is 1. and a lot of array stuff, that's basically how it works. So we're saying if there's no args1, which is arg0 basically, so there's no arguments, we're saying const categories equals reader sync, and we're looking at the commands folders, and then we're doing embed dot set description. These are available, if I can spell, the full commands for message.go.me.display name. Okay. Now we can do the fun part, which is doing the setting it up what commands are. So dot for each category. So we're saying, so in categories, his categories is going to be a reader sync returns a, I don't know if it'll show it. It does, okay. Reader sync will return a string array. This is TypeScript. If you don't understand how TypeScript works, it's just JavaScript in a sense. But this is so this is what it's going to return. So it's going to return a string array. So we're basically saying in the for each, because it's a string array, categories is going to be one of strings, and it's going to search through each of the strings we have in there, which is each of the directories we have. So with that, we can say const dir is equal to client.commands.filter c and c.category equals this dot category. Basically, it's saying, what was that? Yeah, so basically what this is saying is we're going to look for commands that have the category of, let's say, miscellaneous. So it's going to filter and look for the commands that have miscellaneous. The reason why I have category in here, in the command properties, is because there is sometimes where if you have, like, later on, you'll notice with some of my code, I have a folder called dev, and then I leave some commands in there and then moves them later on. But I can just change the category in there, and it'll filter and put that in there into the right category, and I can change it whenever I want to. So it's nicer to have the category in there, because it can it'll be exactly how it should look, and without it being how it looks. So category. Then we need to do const capitalize, which is basically what the category's name is, but since sometimes you can have things lowercase or such, I always uppercase the first letter of my stuff, but if I don't, it doesn't matter, because it will basically do, it'll capitalize it for me. So this, I'll explain it afterwards, plus this dot category dot slice 1. And you don't need to have this dot right here. This is just basically saying this is the category. We don't have to have it there. I don't know why it's like that, but it doesn't have to be there. Anyways, so basically what this is saying, so if we have, we're going to put it in string so it can show. So basically, let's say we have miscellaneous, right? Basically, what this does is basically the first thing, category.slice 0 to 1, which is basically saying in miscellaneous, it wants to grab this right here. This is 0 to 1. This, the I, is 2. This is 0 to 1, basically. Or actually, no. This, we're starting in the first index, and then we're grabbing one thing. I just realized, because that's what this is, right? Yeah. Yeah, start number and then end number, or what you want. Basically, so 0 to 1. Okay? So then it will take 0 to 1, and it will basically capitalize it. Then it will add miscellaneous, and basically right here, it's going to grab right here, because it's saying slice 1 right here, taking this, and basically what we'll do is this plus miscellaneous, and then basically this will equal miscellaneous. So that's kind of how this thing works, is that it does this, which is nice to have because it makes it all look all organized and everything, and it will make it look like you're organized but you really aren't. So yeah, then we need to do a try catch here because there is chances of it throwing an error. Embed dot add, and then we do this capitalize, and we're going to say the dir dot size. Okay, and then we're going to have as the value dir dot map c. And we're going to say c dot name, and we're going to escape the backticks twice, and we're going to put the object between the two. I'll explain what escaping is. Dot join. Okay, so only console dot log this. No, console dot error. Error. You don't have to have it log or throw, but we want to catch there because if we don't, it can cause problems with bot and not running. But anyway, so escaping, how escaping works is, let's say this. So let's say we have double quotes as our string, and let's say Panda says rar. Okay. You can see there's squiggly line right here. It's throwing an error. It's because they're identical characters and they have functions. So it causes problems because it thinks it's another string or it's the end of the string. So escaping basically is when you use a backslash, and it basically deletes the functionality of the character and making it into a character with no function. So like a letter basically. So it escapes it and doesn't do its function. So we can do rar now. That's kind of how escaping works, is that it just prevents the character from doing its functions. Redux uses that a lot with characters that do have a function, and you just want to do that in some strings, such as in here we're going to want to be in a block, inline block, which you'll see later on. But anyways, and then we just return it. Return message dot channel dot send embed. You don't need to like embed.build like other languages such as Java, C#. I think Rust also needs it. We don't need to do that. It's embed. We don't need to build it. It's not a message embed or embed builder. Okay. Now we can do the. Let's test this real quick. So Control C. And we're going to do node dot. Okay, it's going to show help now. Go back here. We can do help. Should throw. Should be okay. It's throwing something. What's it saying? Throwing error. Cannot read property of Did I misspell something wrong here? Did I misspell? Message.guild. Okay. Oh, right here. Me. Okay. And we're gonna do that now. Now it should work. So if we do help, is it gonna give us something? What's it saying? Oh, right, okay. Okay. Exit. Right, so this is saying it's also the left hand action, or what was it called? I forgot, but it says left side. Basically what it's saying is that we have something that we were looking for if. What if it's true? That's what's complaining about. So if we put an else here, then we go back to console, no dot, it should let us do it now. Help. Right? Will it let us or no? Invalid left side assignment. 17. Reference. 17 is right. Let's see here. What did I misplace here? Oh. Wait. Oh, plus. Yeah. Okay, that's why. I don't know why I put that there, but yeah. Now should help. Now it should work. Yeah, so it works. Yeah, so that's left hand side is basically saying that one side can't, the left side can't be, it's, so in the assignment, it's saying it can't be assigned. What we were trying to do was assign something that's already being assigned. So we're assigning something to something that's being assigned. We want to actually add it to it, so yeah. Anyways, so now we can do the if there is argument, command equals client.commands dot get args 0 dot to lowercase, okay, or client.commands dot find cmd dot aliases and cmd dot aliases dot includes args0 dot to lowercase. Like I explained what this thing does in the message event. Basically, we're checking to see if there is a command that has a command name of args. If not, search for aliases. Okay, and then we're going to say if no command, we're going to return message.channel.send message, not message, we're going to send embed.set title to be invalid. Invalid command. Okay, dot set description. And it's going to be do, and we're going to escape again. Okay, do prefix help for a list of commands. Okay. Okay. So basically that's saying if there's no command, if it doesn't exist, just return that saying, hey, that does not exist, it's invalid. Try looking at the list of commands for the commands that do exist and use those. So next we're going to set it up, so description. Okay, and we're going to say the bot's prefix is escape first prefix. Okay, and then and then escaping also can be letters. If you escape a letter, it's makes it into the function. So slash backslash n basically means next line. So in this case, because we're in backticks, we can do this. If we were in parentheses, we have to do, yeah, I'll show you what I mean. So in parentheses, so with backticks, we can enter as much as we want without throwing errors. But if we do this, you can see it throws an error at it. So if we were to do that with that, we have to do that. So like that. So that's another great thing about backticks is that we can indent as much as we want. And then we do command. And then command dot name dot slice 0 to 1 dot to uppercase plus command dot name dot slice 1. And then we do description. So we're going to say what the description dot the command is. It's going to be command dot description or no description provided. With the OR statements, which ORs is double lines. I think they're called railroad tracks. I can't remember what they're called, but these is OR, and if you do an OR in this kind of context, it basically is saying if this does not exist, if this is null, if this is undefined, then we're going to do this. It's basically saying, or we do that. Okay? And then we do aliases. Command dot aliases or none. Okay. Usage is going to be command dot usage none was provided. Okay. And we're going to do right here. Right here, we're going to say, we're going to define what each thing means. So it means that it is required. And then this means it is optional. Okay. And then we do embed dot set footer. And we're going to say message dot build dot me dot display name. We're going to do client dot user dot display avatar URL, and we want the type, and we want the format be JPEG, and we're going to return message dot channel dot send embed. Okay. Now we go back here and we do node dot. Okay, we can go back here, we can say help, right? Now if we do help ping, we get information dot ping, and this is what we wrote in ping command. And you can see this is basically how it looks. It's basically it for this. Trying to think. Yeah, this is about it for this tutorial. But yeah, you don't need to do this actually. I think that you can just require it, and you don't need to pass it into a into a variable or an object. Yeah. So yeah, event, message, ping. The thing, so the thing about this subcommand right here, if you do console.error and you have a command you disabled, like you can add a disable function in this structure, this box structure. You can add so many things to this. That's why I like using this structure the most, is that it's very customizable. But if you add a disable thing and it doesn't show, it's not supposed to show, but like the category, it'll log in there saying, hey, you can't have an empty embed, but it will still run. So you don't have to have this log here. But if you might, you don't need, actually, you just need to cache the error and do nothing with it. So you can just not, you don't need to log it, but that does happen there. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, that's gonna be it. Neat. Okay,